The snow fell like frozen tears that December night, covering Highway 9 in a blanket of white silence. Robert Miller collapsed face first onto the pavement, his 76-year-old body finally giving up. His heart squeezed tight in his chest, each breath a knife of cold air cutting through his lungs. The suitcase he'd been dragging fell beside him, spilling open. A photograph fluttered out, landing face up in the snow. Margaret, his wife, smiling in her wedding dress. He hadn't seen her in 7 years, not since cancer took her and left him alone in a house that echoed with memories and nothing else. Robert tried to lift his hand, tried to reach for the photo, but his arm wouldn't move. The cold seeped through his thin coat, through his skin, straight into his bones. This is it, he thought. This is how I die. Alone on a road nobody travels, in a town nobody knows. Maybe that was fitting. He'd been invisible for so long already. His children hadn't visited in years. His son David had called 3 days ago, but Robert had overheard him afterward, talking to his wife. Damn old man's too stubborn to die. Would have made everything easier. Once he's gone, we sell the land and split it. The words had shattered something inside Robert that no doctor could fix. His vision blurred. The snow kept falling, covering his face, melting against his still warm skin. He thought about the wooden horse in his suitcase, the one he'd carved for a grandchild he'd never met. Sarah had said she was too busy for kids. David said his wife didn't want them. But Robert had kept carving anyway, hoping, always hoping for a family that wanted him around. The darkness pulled at him, gentle and almost kind. "Margaret," he whispered, though no sound came out. "I'm coming, sweetheart. I'm sorry it took so long." Then headlights swept across the field. An engine roared closer, brakes screeched. A door flew open. Robert heard running footsteps crunching through the snow, urgent voices cutting through the silence. "Emma, there's someone here." "There's an old man." "Oh God, I think he's dying." Hands touched his face, checking his pulse. A woman's voice, sharp and professional. "James, he's barely breathing. His pulse is almost gone." Robert tried to speak, tried to say, "Just leave me," but his mouth wouldn't form the words. He felt strong arms sliding under him, lifting him like he weighed nothing at all. "We don't even know him," a man's voice said, hesitant. "James," the woman snapped back. "We're not leaving him here to die." Robert's eyes fluttered open just enough to see their faces. A black family, mother and father, faces tight with worry. Behind them, 2 children stared with wide, frightened eyes. "Mama, is he going to be okay?" a little girl whispered. "He will be, baby," the mother said, though her voice shook. "He will be." They carried Robert to their truck, wrapped him in blankets that smelled like home and laundry detergent. The little girl squeezed his hand between both of hers. "Don't die, mister," she said. "Please don't die." The truck started moving. Robert's consciousness faded in and out like a radio losing signal. He heard voices arguing. "How far to the hospital?" "No time. We take him home." "Are you sure?" "What else can we do?" "Let him die," home, Robert thought, as darkness claimed him. He didn't have a home anymore. That's why he'd walked into the snow with nowhere to go. Better to die out there than die alone in a house where his own children were counting the days until his funeral. When Robert opened his eyes again, he didn't recognize the ceiling above him. It was painted pale yellow with a crack running across it like a river. Panic gripped his chest until a small face appeared in his vision, gap-toothed and grinning. "Mama, Mama, he's awake." The little girl from the truck bounced on her toes. A woman appeared beside her, blonde hair pulled back, wearing a sweatshirt that said Mercy General Hospital. "Easy there," she said, kneeling beside the couch he was lying on. "Don't try to move too fast. I'm Emma Thompson. This is my daughter Lucy. You almost died last night." Robert's mouth felt like sandpaper. "Where am I?" "Our home," Emma said. "James found you on Highway 9. You kept saying no hospital, so we brought you here. We found your nitroglycerin. It helped. A tall man stepped in. You're awake. Thank God. He shook Robert's hand. James Thompson. It was 5 below last night. What were you doing out there? Robert closed his eyes. How could he say he'd been trying to disappear? I was going somewhere, he said. Where? Emma asked softly. I don't know. They exchanged a silent, knowing look. A boy appeared behind James. Is he okay, Dad? He's fine, Tommy. Come say hello. Tommy approached. I gave you my Spider-Man coat last night. Tears pricked Robert's eyes. Thank you. You hungry, Emma asked. I made soup. I don't want to be trouble. You're not, she said firmly. You're staying for dinner. Nurse's orders. Lucy grabbed his hand. We eat together. That's the rule. James helped him to the kitchen table, load wood, scratched, surrounded by mismatched chairs. Emma ladled soup. James sliced bread. Tommy filled plastic cups. They weren't wealthy, but something in Robert's chest tightened that had nothing to do with his heart. We hold hands for grace, Lucy said. Robert hesitated, then took Emma's warm, calloused hand as James prayed. Robert couldn't remember the last time he'd said grace. Not since Margaret. The soup was simple broth, carrots, celery, noodles, but when he tasted it, he closed his eyes. When had anyone last cooked for him? 7 years of frozen dinners and silence. Is it okay? Emma asked. It's perfect, he whispered. Lucy launched into stories about school. Tommy talked about his math test. James mentioned a cabinet he was building. No one asked where Robert came from or why he'd been on the road. They just included him. For the first time in 7 years, Robert Miller didn't feel invisible. That night, Emma insisted he sleep on the couch, piling blankets on him until he protested. Better to warm than to cold, she said. Your core temperature was 89 degrees. After she left, Robert unzipped his suitcase. Under the dim moonlight, he stared at Margaret's photo 25, laughing in her wedding dress. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he whispered. I don't know what I did wrong. Days became weeks. Robert kept planning to leave, but the Thompsons always found a reason for him to stay. Emma's cooking lesson, James's project, Lucy's science assignment. One afternoon, Robert pointed out the kitchen table's loose leg. I can fix it, he said. When James learned Robert had been a carpenter for 40 years, he lit up. In the garage workshop, Robert showed him how to repair the joint. Soon, Tommy and Lucy joined them. I want to make something, Lucy said. A horse. Robert hesitated. The unfinished wooden horse in his suitcase flashed through his mind. I have one started. We can finish it together. Over the next weeks, the workshop became their haven. Robert taught them grain reading, sanding, sawing, shaping. Tommy finished his first wooden horse, crooked but proud. Lucy completed hers a week later, delicate and carefully carved. She hugged it and looked up at him. Thank you, Grandpa Robert. The words stunned him. He knelt, voice shaking. You can call me that if you want. Tommy joined. Can I call you Grandpa too? Robert nodded, overwhelmed. That night, he stared at the 3 wooden horses, his own, Tommy's, Lucy's. My real grandchildren never visited, he murmured. Emma stood beside him quietly. These kids choose you, she said. That's love. The next morning, Robert tried slipping money into Emma's purse. She handed it back. No, you're not here because of money. You're here because you're family. Robert swallowed hard. I'm not used to love without conditions. Then start now, Emma said gently. 2 months passed. Robert officially moved into the den, which James and Tommy helped him paint a warm beige. Emma sewed curtains. Lucy made him a welcome home sign decorated with crayon horses. He'd never been happier. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon in February, a police car pulled up in front of the Thompson house. Robert was in the workshop with Tommy when Emma appeared, tense. Robert, the police are here. And 2 people who say they're your children. The wood plane slipped from his hand. His heart pounded. You don't have to see them, James said. Hide, Grandpa, Tommy whispered. No, Robert said. I've been hiding long enough. He walked to the door, James and Emma beside him. On the porch stood 2 officers and the 2 people he hadn't seen in 3 years. David looked polished and insincere. Sarah brittle, behind perfect makeup. Dad, David said, stepping forward. We've been so worried. I said I was safe, Robert replied. Sir, an officer asked, are you here willingly? Yes. The Thompsons saved my life. I'm here by choice, and you're being cared for. Better than in 7 years. David's smile tightened. Dad, you need proper care. Medical supervision. Emma is a nurse, Robert said. A random nurse, Sarah snapped. Dad, you can't just live with strangers. They want nothing from me, Robert said. David turned to the Thompsons. He belongs with family. I am with family, Robert answered. Where were you when I was in the hospital? When I went home alone? Dad, we were busy. I heard you, Robert cut in. You said the old man was too stubborn to die. David paled. Sarah swallowed hard. You made it clear I was an inconvenience, Robert said. When's the last time you visited? For years. Because you're replacing us. David burst out. You replaced yourselves, Robert said. James stepped forward. You should leave. The police officer cleared his throat. Mr. Miller appears to be competent and here by choice. Unless there's evidence of elder abuse, there isn't, Robert said firmly. Then I'm afraid there's nothing more we can do. Mr. Miller has the right to live, where he chooses. The officer tipped his hat and walked back to the patrol car. David stared at Robert, his face red with anger and something that might have been shame. You're making a mistake, Dad. No, Robert said. The mistake was thinking you cared about me as a person instead of a paycheck. We'll contest this, Sarah said, her voice cold now. If you're not in your right mind. Contest what? Robert interrupted. I haven't died yet. No will to read. He felt something like pity stir in his chest. Go home, Sarah. Live your life. Just stop pretending I'm part of it. Dad, I forgive you, Robert said quietly. Both of you. I forgive you for not being what I needed, for not seeing me, for waiting for me to die. He took a breath. But I don't need your permission to be happy, and I don't need your version of love anymore. He turned and walked back into the house. James and Emma followed, closing the door firmly behind them. Through the window, Robert watched David and Sarah stand on the sidewalk, arguing. Finally, they got into an expensive sedan and drove away. Lucy ran to Robert and hugged his legs. They were mean, Grandpa. I know, sweetheart. Are you sad? Robert thought about it. Was he sad? His children, his blood children, had just left, maybe forever. But Tommy was hovering nearby, worried. Emma was making tea in the kitchen. James was already talking about ordering pizza to cheer everyone up. No, Robert said, surprised to realize it was true. I'm not sad. That night, Robert sat down at the kitchen table with paper and pen. He wrote for hours, updating his will. 70% of his assets would go to establishing a fund, the Robert Miller Foundation, dedicated to helping elderly people who'd been abandoned by their families. 30% would go to the Thompsons. When he finished, he felt lighter than he had in years. He wasn't defined by his children's cruelty. He was defined by how he chose to respond to it. And he chose love. Real love. The kind that was freely given and freely received. The kind he'd found in a small house in Pinehurst with a family that chose him when they didn't have to. Robert Miller lived with the Thompson family for 3 more years. 3 years that felt fuller than the previous 76 combined. He taught Tommy advanced woodworking, dovetail joints, mortise and tenon, how to read plans and create beautiful furniture from raw lumber. He taught Lucy too, though her interest ran toward the artistic. She learned to carve decorative elements to create small sculptures of animals and flowers. Every night, Robert told the kids stories. Lucy started writing them down, illustrating them with careful drawings. They celebrated birthdays together. Robert's 77th, 78th, 79th. The Thompsons made him cakes and gave him gifts, usually tools or wood, because they knew what he loved. He taught Emma how to build a raised garden bed, and together they grew tomatoes and Margaret's favorite roses. When Tommy graduated from middle school, Robert was in the front row cheering louder than anyone. When Lucy won the school art competition with a carved wooden sculpture of horses, Robert framed the ribbon and hung it in his room. He had hard days, days when his heart acted up and Emma had to monitor him closely. But mostly, he had good days. Days that smelled like sawdust and Emma's cooking. Days filled with Lucy's laughter and Tommy's questions and James's terrible jokes. Days where he mattered. In the spring of his third year with the Thompsons, Robert's health began to decline more noticeably. His heart was giving out, finally, truly giving out. Emma wanted him to go to the hospital, but Robert refused. "I'm not dying in some sterile room with machines beeping," he said, firmly. "I'm dying here, at home, with my family." James set up a bed in the living room, so Robert wouldn't have to manage stairs. The kids helped decorate the space with his favorite things: photos of Margaret, the 3 wooden horses, Lucy's drawings. On a Tuesday evening in May, Robert knew it was time. He could feel it, in his chest, in the way his breath came shorter, in the strange peace that settled over him. Emma sat on one side of the bed, James on the other, each holding one of his hands. Tommy and Lucy sat at the foot, quiet and solemn, understanding without being told. "Thank you," Robert whispered, his voice barely audible. "Thank you for showing me what family really is." "We love you, Dad," James said, tears streaming down his face. "We love you, Grandpa," Lucy added, her voice breaking. Robert smiled. He'd lived 79 years. But he'd made mistakes. He'd been hurt. He'd hurt others. But in the end, he'd found this love that was freely given, family that was chosen, a home that was real. "I'm not afraid," he said. "I'm going to see Margaret." Love isn't about blood, it's about choice. Emma squeezed his hand. "We chose you, every day, and I chose you," Robert whispered. "Best choice I ever made." His eyes closed, his breathing slowed. And surrounded by those who truly loved him, Robert Miller let go. The funeral was Saturday. Over 200 attended. Neighbors Robert had helped. People from James's carpentry, teachers, and elderly townsfolk who found comfort in his kindness. A life defined not by blood, but by love, leaving a town forever touched. David and Sarah never returned. A week later, they sent a lawyer to contest the will, claiming Robert had been manipulated and wasn't of sound mind. The case fell apart. Quickly, medical records proved he was competent, and witnesses confirmed his clarity. The judge dismissed it within an hour. "Mr. Miller chose people who loved him," he said. Case dismissed. David and Sarah received only a wooden box with their names carved on top. Inside was an old lake photo of the 4 of them and a letter. In it, Robert forgave them. He wrote that he'd spent years feeling hurt, but finally understood he hadn't failed. They had simply chosen differently. He hoped they'd one day realize what they'd lost. Not money, but the relationship. He told them he'd found a family who chose him and made his last years happy. "I would have chosen you if you'd chosen me," he wrote. "I hope you find real love someday, Dad." Sarah cried alone in her apartment. David canceled his meetings after reading it. Neither forgot it. 6 months later, the Robert Miller Foundation opened. Emma and James ran it part-time with volunteers, helping elderly people abandoned by family. Within 5 years, they'd supported over 1,000. Tommy, now 15, created a woodworking program teaching seniors craftsmanship. "My grandpa taught me," he'd say. Lucy, 13, visited elders weekly, sharing drawings and listening to their stories. Robert's room stayed mostly untouched, his tools still in use. Every year, the Thompsons visited his grave, sharing memories. 10 years later, Tommy opened a woodworking school offering free classes to foster and at-risk kids. Above his bench hung a sign: "Love isn't about blood, it's about who shows up." Robert Miller. Lucy became an artist, donating part of every sale to the foundation. Her studio wall held 156 portraits of her grandfather. 25 years after his death, the foundation had helped over 10,000 people. In Robert's old house, a new father taught his son to carve a wooden horse with the same tools passed down from Robert. When the boy asked who taught him, the father said, "A man named Robert Miller. Love doesn't die, son. It gets passed on." And somewhere, Robert Miller smiled.